Hey everybody, it's been quite a while since me and Courage have been here to talk baseball. Totally my fault. I kind of covered that in the last one. I screwed up and messed up my computer and took way too long to get everything going again, but we're back. Arizona Fall League is now underway. We're going to jump right on into that. Courage, we've got some hitters that are doing very well out there. Why don't you tell us a little bit about who's doing what?
Well, the Peoria Javelinas certainly do have some hot hitters. They're the best team by average and OPS, and Zach Vinci, believe it or not, things we didn't think we'd be saying 2 weeks into the Fall League is that Zach Vinci leads the circuit with 3 home runs. That's the number he hit in 2016 with the Wahoos in 121 games. He's already matched that in 7 games in the desert. In fact, minutes ago, hit a walk-off grand slam for the Javelinas to propel them to their 9th straight victory. Hitting .346, caught the attention of Baseball America a few weeks ago for his hot start, 2 home runs in the opening week. And really, he's hitting for a little more power than we're used to seeing, and of course there's a small sample size caveat for it. But this is a guy who can fit into a roster. He's a glove-first shortstop, a Gold Glove winner both at the professional level and collegiate level. And if his bat comes around, you can really be a fixture at the bottom of the Reds order, or at least another fresh face off the bench. Then you go to Brandon Dixon, who put on a real hitting clinic earlier in the year for Pensacola. Kind of calmed down in the second half and trying to get back to form in Arizona. And so far, so good. 3 multi-hit games in the 7 he's played, including a 3-hit night on October 13th. However, just 1 extra base hit, a double, so far in just under 30 at-bats. He split his time between third base and first base, the former of which is a position he really didn't play at all this year. Just 6 innings logged with the Wahoos at third base. But the Reds will try him at the corners and maybe throw him into the outfield up in Louisville next season. Also a hot bat, and just trying to keep it hot, out with the Javelinas, winners of 9 straight and first place in their division. And for the rest, let's go back to Doug.
Yeah, so Chad Wallach is making his 3rd straight year in Arizona. The first 2 years did not go so well. The Marlins sent him there in 2014, and he struggled to OPS 500. The Reds sent him back there last year. Now, granted, he only played in a handful of games last year, so very small sample size. I believe it was 9 games that he played, but he really struggled to hit there as well last year. This year, I guess he's a lot more comfortable. He's currently hitting .308, and he's slugging .615. He's got 2 doubles and 2 home runs in just 7 games. Things have gone a lot better for him offensively. Now, what's interesting to me is, he missed a lot of time in the middle of the summer. He had a broken bone in his hand that he suffered while he was in Pensacola. So you'd think that, maybe he'd try and get some more reps out in Arizona behind the plate. He's played exclusively at first base so far. I think that maybe that's going to be his future role if he reaches the big leagues, as kind of a, backup catcher, a guy who can play at first base some, give somebody, which if it's going to be with Cincinnati, it's going to be Joey Votto. Joey Votto's not going anywhere despite crazy rumors swirling in the offseason so far.
Despite what John Heyman says, Toronto's probably not on the map for Joey Votto.
Yeah, no, not if they want the Reds to pay $75 to $100 million of that contract, which is absolutely laughable, but that's a different story for a different day. But I think that's kind of the role that Chad Wallach's probably going to find himself in if he does reach the major leagues, is kind of that backup hybrid kind of catcher, first baseman kind of role. But it's just interesting to me that he hasn't caught any games yet. I mean, obviously, you want your guys to get at bats, but he's also a guy who, he didn't really catch until his sophomore year in college. So it's one of those things where catchers take longer to develop, mostly because of the amount of time and effort they put in defensively, and he's missed out on those reps, both this year with the injury and now out in Arizona. He's not getting them either. I just find that interesting. And then Brian O'Grady is also out there. Now, he is the only hitter that the Reds have sent out to Arizona that's not eligible for the upcoming Rule 5 draft. He's only played in 4 games so far. He's got 3 walks and 5 strikeouts. He's hitting .200, but it's 4 games. It really doesn't mean anything yet. Let's jump on over to the pitching side, and Courage, give us some information.
All right. Well, we've got Barrett Aston, a pickup a few years ago for Jonathan Broxton, came over with Kevin Shackelford, and his second tour of the Southern League really served him well. A midseason All-Star, and really helped pitch Pensacola to the playoffs in the second half. So he's getting his turn out in Arizona now. 5 games, 7 innings, and showing a fastball, cutter, and slider. Really, he'll throw the whole kitchen sink at you. And still needs to find a good role moving forward with the organization. A reluctant starter at times for Pensacola, though he pitched admirably in that role. And really a lights-out reliever as the season wound down. So if the Reds can figure out how to use him well, there's a good opportunity for him in that organization, or possibly, I believe he is, Doug, Rule 5 eligible. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, so he's Rule 5 eligible, and we were saying off camera just a few moments ago, but the Blue Jays' Joe Biagini kind of fits that same role of a guy with, good, not great stats in Double-A, who plugged right into a Major League bullpen and lived up to the challenge. So if a team wants to take that plunge on a Barrett Aston type, it's certainly theirs for the taking. Then you move over to Evan Mitchell, who may not be a name you know too well out of Mississippi State, but it's one you should get to know. He's throwing mostly a 2-seam fastball up to 95. It showed similar speeds in Pensacola. And what Blue Wahoo's manager Pat Kelly referred to as a manhole cover slider, which is a really interesting term from a old scouting perspective. He's picked up 1 win and 1 loss so far, 6 innings, poached of 4 games for the Javelinas, out to a 150 earned run average. And should see a little more time in Pensacola next season, but certainly a good showing in his first Double-A tour, and good fall to back that up. Doug?
So I'll cover the 2 left-handers that the Reds have sent out to Arizona. We've got Nick Rout. He split his season between Pensacola and Louisville. Most of it came with Pensacola. He threw 50 innings there. He actually gave up a home run today. So, as we were getting set up for this, his stats did change a little bit, but he's performed quite well. He's thrown 6 innings. He's got an ERA of 3.0, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. What's interesting with Rout is that he did struggle when he got to AAA, and I think he only threw 18 innings for the Bats before they sent him back down. Control was a problem there. He actually walked more batters than he struck out, with 13 to 12. Not exactly the best ratio you want to see from a pitcher, but he definitely fills a role that the Reds need, and he's Rule 5 eligible this year. I think that one of the reasons they sent him out there was to get that last look at him, to maybe see if they wanted to protect him from the Rule 5 draft and put him on the 40-man roster. The Reds realistically don't have too many left-handed pitchers, much less left-handed relievers in the upper parts of their farm system. So I think that this is a really big time for him over the next 3.5 weeks before this fall season ends for him. It really could kind of set up where his career is going to be going forward. And then they've also sent out left-handed starting pitcher Seth Varner. Now, he's the only pitcher that isn't Rule 5 eligible this year that the Reds sent out there. And he's only made 2 starts so far. He's thrown 3 innings in each. He's got 2 strikeouts, 1 walk. He's a very control-first pitcher. He sits in the mid to upper 80s with his fastball. I think that what the Reds want to do with him in the long run is probably going to be move him to the bullpen. They tried that for a brief period of time, but they needed more starting pitchers, so he moved back into that role. He's a local guy. He's from about 30 minutes outside of Cincinnati, so it's always a good rooting story when you're talking about Seth Varner. It'll be interesting to see where he goes next year. He had plenty of success this year in the Florida State League. He threw 134 innings, had a 3.83 ERA, but he's not that guy that's going to really force his way into a starting rotation. So where he winds up next year may be more about what the organization needs at both Daytona or Pensacola and what kind of role he could fill out. That's enough of the guys out in Arizona. But there's a few guys playing around the rest of the world in the Caribbean leagues. Kourage, one of the guys that's performing quite well, is Sebastian Elizalde. Why don't you tell us about what he's doing in Mexico?
Sebastian Elizalde was one of the quietest performers on the farm system all year. But if you were paying attention, hit just under 300 for the Blue Wahoos, and this is a guy who could be a 4th or 5th outfielder at the major league level, another bench bat. And really, if you look back on RedsMinorLeagues.com, you'll see a few weeks ago he was hovering around the same mark at 300. He has kept the pace up overseas and continues to hit, just not hitting for as much power, Doug.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who's got, a good hit tool. He really cut down on the amount of strikeouts he had in the past this year, and that's carried forward so far in Mexico. He's only got 5 strikeouts and just over 50 plate appearances. Getting off to a good start in Mexico. He performed quite well there last year as well. Realistically, he's the only guy that's playing internationally right now who's gotten any sort of significant playing time among the minor leaguers. Alejandro Chacin has pitched 2 innings in the Venezuelan Winter League. Let's see. I think, Tim Melville has made 2 starts in the Mexican Winter League. He struggled in both of those. He's got 6 walks and 6 strikeouts. That's really about it as far as Winter League goes. The Puerto Rican Winter League starts up in 2 days. Hopefully we'll start seeing more Reds minor league guys show up in these leagues. I know Juan Duran made his team in the Dominican Republic, but he's yet to play. Granted, they've only been playing for a few days at this point. But one interesting thing is that the World Series starts in just over an hour. Kourage, what's your take on who's going to win the World Series, and why do you think that's going to happen?
Well, first a quick backstory to explain it. I was watching the championship series with my dad not too long ago, and he wasn't so sure about the Cubs. You hear the same opinion over and over, and part of you kind of wants to rebel against it and play devil's advocate. And I was in the process of telling him, like it or not, the Cubs are just the team of destiny this year. And what would you know, Miguel Montero hits that pinch hit home run, a grand slam in fact, to put the Cubs up for good. And he kind of came around and said, I think they're just going to have to go all the way and win the whole thing. So I can't argue with the Cubs this year. I know the Reds fans want me to pick against it. Joey Votto had that infamous quote a few years ago about people in Chicago Cubs jerseys, but quite simply, it's got to be the Cubs. It's got to be the Cubs, Doug.
Yeah, I'm with you. If you just look at every aspect of the game, the Cubs can match up with the Indians everywhere except for stealing bases. That's the only part of the game where the Cubs don't have an advantage. Both teams have elite relievers. Pretty much top to bottom. The Cubs have Aroldis Chapman, the Indians have Andrew Miller. But I think the starting pitching that the Cubs have, the Indians just can't match that. After Corey Kluber, the Indians they just don't match up. Offensively, the Cubs take advantage, and it's top to bottom. Their lineup is just significantly better. Defensively, not that the Indians are bad defensively, but the Cubs are on a different level. Now, with all that said, the Cubs, weird things just seem to happen to them, so you don't really know. But on paper, this should be I don't want to say an easy win for the Cubs, but if they won it in 5 or 6 games, that shouldn't shock anybody. They're significantly better on paper than the Indians are.
And I think the biggest factor could be, as we were talking about that near elite defense that the Cubs have put out this year, the biggest factor could be someone who doesn't pick up a glove all series, and that's Kyle Schwarber, added to the roster today after just a cup of coffee in the Fall League. Incredible progress and just a Hollywood moment for a club that's had their share of Hollywood moments all year. I don't want to throw out the Kirk Gibson label, Doug, but would it surprise you, with the way the Cubs have played all year, if someone told you, I'm from the future, from 6 hours ahead, and Kyle Schwarber hit the walk-off home run, or should I say the go-ahead home run out in Cleveland, and it wouldn't surprise me, at least.
It wouldn't surprise me, but as somebody who's had their ACL rebuilt, 6 months is just insane to me. Now, granted, it was 10 years ago that I had mine redone, so technology's come a little bit, but 6 months is unheard of even today. But if he's just going to be DHing and just swinging the bat, obviously you got to run the bases, but it's a very aggressive plan of action for the Cubs. He's faced 10 pitchers in the past 6 months. I wish the kid well. I love watching him hit, but it might be a little bit aggressive for my liking. But yeah, I'm not a doctor, and I'm sure that they have plenty of doctors that have weighed in on it, and they feel like it's going to work. So good luck to them.
All right. Well, It's going to be a fun one to watch. Certainly, two teams that have waited their turn for a long time, and unfortunately will lose the 108-year insult to throw back in their face. But if all goes according to plan, Doug, you can respond with, wait for Nick Senzel, and perhaps you can get the upper hand against Cubs fans again next year.
Yeah, well, we'll have to wait and see, but I'm not counting on it for next year just yet. But all right, well, we're wrapping up here in 15 minutes, so we're gonna call it a day. Thanks for tuning in. If you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, head on over there and subscribe. If not, well, you're gonna miss out on all of these awesome baseball talks. We'll see you again next week. Take care.